Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you probably know, I have not uploaded in quite some time. I've just been going through it. That's the long of the short of the long. But we're back and we are, dare I say, better than ever. During the time that I was not uploading, I was still on my little notes app trying to brainstorm some really fun video ideas, because although, like, let's just get it out there, the book content is still going to be like my favorite thing to film on here, but I also wanted to add in a little bit of just like videos for like day-to-day stuff. I've got some fun ideas coming your way, and I just really want to use this as like my creative outlet, as I have been, because there's not really much else that I do where I feel like, wow, like I'm creating something. So yeah, we're gonna keep at it, and I hope you guys stick along for the little ride. So I am very much a short book girly. This is the kind of book that I will reach for if I'm trying to get out of a reading slump, or if I just want to experience something in quite a quick time, if that makes sense. So why not start a little series dedicated to my short books, my short stories. Obviously, if you are somebody who also loves a short book, then this series is for you. This one is going to be kind of like a two-parter. I'm going to do part one today, which is 6, I think I've got here, 6 short books that I recommend that you read. And then next week I'm going to do part 2, which is, I think I've got like 7 short books that I want to read for this summer. Don't know why I did that. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So the first book we have is the latest short book that I finished, and it is Heatwave by Victor Justin. This page count, let's see, is 104 pages, plus the font is actually quite large. This follows a young man who is on like a beach caravan holiday, and it's a bit of a dark contemporary fiction. Happens over a span of like a few days, but let me read the blurb to you, because I honestly think that the blurb will always give you exactly what it should. It's the end of August and the long summer holidays are drawing to a close. 17-year-old Leonard is on a camping holiday with his family in the south of France. Awkward and ill at ease, he is an outsider who creeps away from parties unnoticed after a couple of drinks. On the final Friday of the trip, unable to sleep, Leonard goes for a walk and sees one of the boys from the campsite, Oscar, hanging from the rope of a playground swing. Leonard watches as the rope slowly strangles Oscar. Then, unable to think straight, he buries the body in the sand and returns to his tent. The next day is the hottest in 17 years. Disoriented by the oppressive heat and distracted by his desire for a girl named Luz, Leonard spends the ensuing hours trying not to unravel. So it's very much slow in the sense of what's going to happen, but this was definitely a very interesting and obviously quick read. Definitely read this one if you love like a darker contemporary fiction, and I gave this one like a 3 stars. Let me say it right now, a 3 star is not a bad rating, by the way. 3 stars still means that I really enjoyed it. It just wasn't life-changing for me, and I probably wouldn't pick it up ever again. I think when it's like 2 star and below, that's when you're like, 3 stars is kind of like neutral good, if that makes sense. So yeah, next up we have Caleb Azuma Nelson's Open Water. The page count for this is 163, and let me tell you that this book was just beautiful. I think some people passed on it just because the way it's written is very poetic. It's very Ocean Vuong on Earth Are Briefly Gorgeous. It's that kind of, a lot of metaphors, a lot of like similarities to as if you're reading a very long poem. But I personally really loved it, and the story between the 2 main characters, the love story, it was so modern yet so classic, if that makes sense. Let's read the blurb. 2 young people meet at a pub in southeast London. Both are black British, both won scholarships to private schools where they struggle to belong, both are now artists. He's a photographer, she a dancer, trying to make their mark in a city that by turns celebrates and rejects them. This is a difficult word to read. Tentatively, tenderly, they fall in love. But 2 people who seem destined to be together can still be torn apart by fear and violence. At once an achingly beautiful love story and a potent insight into race and masculinity, Open Water asks what it means to be a person in a world that sees you only as a black body, to be vulnerable when you're only respected for strength, to find safety and love only to lose it. With gorgeous, soulful intensity, Caleb Azuma Nelson has written the most essential British debut of recent years. Definitely pick this one up if you love, like I said, like Ocean Vuong kind of short books where it's very poetic and romantic. And honestly, I gave this one a 5 star just because as a whole package of the storyline, the characters, the like kind of just the emotion that it builds, plus the way it's written, it really, I just absolutely loved it. So definitely this one. Next up we have A Brown Girls by Daphne Palasi Andreades. I believe she is Filipino, which is the very first time I have seen a book by a Filipino author actually make its way like round kind of like the mainstream world, essentially. Like, this is still not very well known, but it should be. This I gave like a 4.55 star to. This follows girlhood but as a person of color, and it follows you from when you are a young girl to when you are a woman, and what that entails, and all the different ways that your life can come into despite having like the same experience, like very similar experiences and backgrounds, etc., and even like the location of where you grew up and all of that good stuff. It was just really nice to feel like represented. I mean, I looked on Goodreads and so many people were slagging this off, saying that this was written for a white person to have on their shelf to make themselves feel kind of like woke. Me as a brown girl, I felt really seen by this, and it wasn't just because, I don't know, maybe there's a bias because I'm Filipino and maybe she spoke with a little bit more of a bias towards like the Filipina experience, but I feel like I also have seen girls who are of Latin descent, girls who are of other Asian descents, girls who are black, who have found this to be quite like, wow, that's about me, that's how I feel. And even though these are girls who are based, like, I think they're like in, yeah, Queens, New York, and I'm living in England, I still felt very seen by this. So yeah, I absolutely loved this one. I didn't even say the page count. Page count is 209, and the blurb is: Brown Girls dives deep into the lives of a group of young women of colour growing up in Queens, New York. Here, streets echo with many languages, subways rumble above dollar stores, and the briny scent of the ocean wafts in from Rockaway Beach. Here, girls like Nadira, Gabby, Naz, Trish, Angelique, and many others struggle to reconcile their different immigrant backgrounds with the American culture they come of age in. Here, they become friends for life, or so they vow. Honestly, read this one. The last 3 books I have are translated Asian literature. Now, I am putting like that out there because let me tell you, like, my sister and I, we love translated Asian literature. I don't know what it is about them, and it's not necessarily just like Korean or Japanese. Like, it's literally like every like translated literature that I've picked up have been Asian for the most part, and I don't know, I just really enjoy them. But I just thought I'd get that out there. We have Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. I gave this one a 3.5 star initially, and I read this a few years ago. The more I remember that I read this, the more I'm like, no, this is like a 4 stars to me. This talks about the mundane everyday, but she is like a little bit odd. She's not like everybody else, but I don't know, I just found it so interesting. So the page count on this is 163 and large font. Let's read the blurb. She's 36 years old, she's never had a boyfriend, and she's been working in the same convenience store for 18 years. Her parents wish she'd get a better job. Her friends wonder why she won't get married. But Kiko knows what makes her happy, and she's not going to let anyone take her away from her convenience store. She was so lovable, but also so odd. I think it was a little bit of an ode to how I personally think that Asian countries aren't quite as aware of neurodivergence, especially in the Far East. I don't know, that's just what I feel like, and I know for a fact in the Philippines, although they are a lot more culturally becoming aware of it, it's not like how it is in the Western world, where it's so embraced and celebrated, and it's not seen as a disadvantage, and there are so many ways where they are included into, you know, like the community, in the sense of there are things out there to help people who experience neurodivergence to not feel like they are being kind of pushed aside. I feel like in more traditional countries, like I use that, it's not as understood, and I think this book will give you an insight to that if you're not familiar with that kind of feeling. But also Sayaka Murata is just known to also write very, I don't know, like it's just so interesting. She writes really well. But that's just my thoughts, and I honestly recommend reading Convenience Store Woman. Okay, the next book we have here is Heaven by Miko Kawakami. Let's start with page count first. Let's do page count first. Page count is 160 something, 167. This I read in a few sittings, but because it was quite heavy, like the content of it, but I gave this one like a 4.5 stars. I absolutely loved this book, and it opened my eyes to Kawakami's work, and I've now got all the other books that Kawakami's written because, I don't know, I just really enjoyed this one. This made me cry so much, and it's insane how much emotion a 160 something page book made me feel, to the point that I was like tears in my eyes. But yeah, here we are reading Heaven. So the blurb says, in a Japanese school we meet a 14-year-old boy. Subjected to relentless torment for having a lazy eye, he chooses to suffer in silence instead of fighting back. The only person who understands what he's going through is a female classmate, Kojima, who experiences similar treatment at the hands of her bullies. Providing each other with consolation at a time in their lives when they need it most, the two young friends grow closer than ever. But what ultimately is the nature of a friendship when your shared bond is terror? Like, I'm getting emotional just reading it. Unflinching yet tender, sharply observed, intimate and multi-layered, Heaven stands as yet another dazzling testament to Miko Kawakami's uncontainable talent. Simple but profound, there can be little doubt that it has cemented her reputation as one of the most important young authors at work today. And yeah, exactly that. This should certainly be spoke about when we're talking about sad girl books. This should be like spoke about. But yeah, Heaven by Miko Kawakami. And then last but not least, I'm going to show you the first book, but it's actually a series. I've only read the first book though, and that in itself made me cry so much. And it is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Yeah, Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This word count, I keep wanting to say word count. The page count for this one is 213. Now this is a little bit more like a collection of short stories that flows together to form like a shorter book basically. But why was this so heartbreaking? I mean, I'm sure you've heard of the premise of what the what's it called, it's a coffee shop where you can go and sit down in, and it takes you to a certain time in the past, and of course do with that as you wish. But the stories in here was just so gut-wrenching at times. Just to give you a rough idea of what each short story was for, obviously I've told you what the cafe is about. Part 1 is the lovers, part 2 is husband and wife, part 3 is the sisters, and part 4 is mother and child. The way it explored all the different relationships between like those dynamics, all I'm saying is pick this up and read it. I'm actually gonna go ask my sister because she has the second book, she borrowed it. If she hasn't finished it yet, I'm gonna let her have it, but otherwise I kind of want to read it soon. But yeah, this was just so good. Gave this one a 5-star. Let's read the blurb. In a small back alley in Tokyo, there is a cafe which has been serving carefully brewed coffee for more than 100 years. But this coffee shop offers its customers a unique experience, the chance to travel back in time. In Before the Coffee Gets Cold, we meet 4 visitors, each of whom is hoping to make use of the cafe's time-traveling offer in order to confront the lover who left them, receive a letter from the husband whose memory has begun to fade, see their sister one last time, and meet the daughter they never got the chance to know. But the journey into the past does not come without risks. Customers must sit in a particular seat, they cannot leave the cafe, and finally they must return to the present before the coffee gets cold. Honestly, if you're going to take anything away from this, just read it. So just a quick roundup of the 6 books that I highly recommend that you read. We have Heatwave by Victor Justin. We have Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson. We have Brown Girls by Daphne Palazzi Andreadis. We have Convenience Store Women by Sayaka Murata. We have Heaven by Miko Kawakami, and we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!